You know how I'm fond of saying that casino in my native Bucks County is a destination? TC, you hear me say that virtually every day.
I do.
Okay, consider this. Friday night, Kansas.
Come on.
Saturday night, Andrew Dice Clay.
Let's go.
Andrew Dice Clay, as in Hickory Dickory Dock. I better not finish that sentence. But Andrew Dice Clay, as I just had to remind TC, was Lady Gaga's father with Bradley Cooper in A Star is Born.
I had no idea.
He's a phenomenal actor.
I mean, I can picture him, but I had no idea.
But do you know his humor from the 70s?
I do not. Only from you, because I've been hearing you say that one line for 20 years.
Perhaps you should go to Parks Casino Saturday night and find out, because it will not be Dice as Lady Gaga's father, I assure you. Parks Casino, it is a destination. Time now for the headlines from Smerconish.com, the newsletter. Going to be hard for me to run through all the material that I want to get to, because it's a big news day, interesting news day, and it's all over the lot. I'll begin with yesterday's survey results. 10,469 votes were cast. Should the United States intervene militarily if China attempts to take Taiwan by force? President Biden yesterday in Asia, here was the exchange.
Are you willing to get involved militarily to defend Taiwan if it comes to that?
Yes.
Well, 60% of those who responded at Smerconish.com agree with President Biden. 60.04% said yes. Mark Halpern today in his Wide World of News said this: on the matter of China and the United States, aka the biggest story on the planet, there's a lot to digest as President Biden wings his way home from Japan. The media coverage of the president's Monday Taiwan remarks and the White House clarification is hilariously all over the map, with characterizations of the original statement running the gamut from gaffe to Uncle Joe to purposeful, premeditated, good cop, bad cop, to executive assertion, to mass confusion, to the biggest story on earth, to barely mentioning it at all. Truly, says Mark, I can't recall an utter absence of a conventional wisdom storyline on such a monumental matter since. And I think he's absolutely right. Like, what was that? I think the president is being given less credit than he deserves by those who say, oh, it was a gaffe. I think he's starting to play the role of, here's my direct answer. And then people can come out of the woodwork and try and walk it back. But if you're China, you're left wondering, kind of like Reagan, kind of like the Iranians worried about Reagan and quickly released the hostages. Like, hey, maybe this guy, he means it. Just saying. Today's survey question, by the way, did you enjoy, we call the little graph on my YouTube channel, the slide that promotes these conversations. We call that the thumbnail. I don't know if TC understood where today's thumbnail came from, but I was really excited. And then Randy over at Creative Outfit quickly did what I asked, which was, do you see the image, TC?
I do see the image.
What is it? Can you explain it?
So it is a truck with an oversized Georgia peach in the flatbed.
Right.
And it says the Allman Brothers underneath it.
So it is the album cover from the classic 1972 Allman Brothers, Georgia-based, Eat a Peach. My recollection is it was actually a double album, and it consisted of both live and studio music. All I remember is Melissa.
Ooh, who's Melissa?
Well, Melissa's on the album. I didn't know Melissa.
I
didn't think I knew any Melissas, frankly.
Okay, I didn't know if it was
back
Melissa X who you went to school with. Okay,
no,
I never know.
Just a phenomenal song. Anyway, it's election day in Georgia. And with no disrespect to my cable colleagues either at the network where I'm affiliated or all the other cable outlets, like tonight is going to be, it's going to be argued as to just a giant scorecard of Donald Trump. And I just don't see it that way. My survey question asks, do endorsement defeats jeopardize Donald Trump's hold on the GOP? Because that's going to be the storyline. When Governor Kemp is renominated tonight and not former Senator Perdue now will have been dragged down twice by Trump, I know that many will wish to write Trump's epitaph as, wow, what a major defeat for Donald Trump. It's just not the way that I see it. I think that all politics really are local, and that Trump can help you a bit. I mean, I don't think that Dr. Oz would be where he is in Pennsylvania, I'll mention in a moment, without Donald Trump. But I'm telling you, the reports of Trump's demise are greatly exaggerated, to quote Mark Twain, at least in my view. But it seemed like the appropriate survey question: do endorsement defeats jeopardize Donald Trump's hold on the GOP? I also find interesting that former Vice President Mike Pence came in literally in the 11th hour for Brian Kemp, I think to spike the football. I said yesterday that contentious race, he'd have come to Pennsylvania, the Barnett. So it's Pence wanting to cross swords with Trump, but only of hermetically sealed environment, which is a pretty much guaranteed win for Kemp. The more interesting race in Georgia tonight is whether Brad Raffensperger is able to win renomination as the Secretary of State. Raffensperger, of course, probably second only to Kemp in terms of Georgians despised by Donald Trump, because it was Raffensperger that Kemp called and said, what were the words? Like, hey, just find me 11,000 more votes. May I also recommend, and link at Smerconish.com today, is a Rich Lowry piece from the New York Post. Rich Lowry, the syndicated columnist, headline: Georgia's early vote surge shows the smears about its voting law were complete nonsense. He begins this way: we all know what happens when a tree falls in an empty forest, what happens when a democracy emerges unscathed from a purported vile racist threat to its very existence. Pretty much the same thing, as it turns out. The surge in early vote in Georgia shows that all the smears about the state's new voting law, repeated by everyone from the president on down, were complete nonsense. On the Republican side of the aisle, according to the Secretary of State's office, there have been 453,000 and change early votes, 29,000 and change absentee votes this primary season. This compared to just 153,000 early votes and 14,000 absentee votes during the last pre-pandemic midterms. So the Democrats have seen a similar surge, voting in Georgia way up, despite all the hullabaloo over the Georgia law. And you will recall me saying when the Georgia law came out, TC, I don't know if you remember, but that's too long of a story to even tell. But I remember getting blowback from a colleague of mine within CNN who was Atlanta-based, just livid over me going on CNN and saying, this Georgia law, when you break it down by its component parts, none of them seem as appalling as they are made out collectively to be.
And someone called you on that and said that that was not appropriate for you to say that?
No, not in an official context.
Oh.
Not in an official context.
Oh. Deans. Wow.
Yeah.
And look at you now.
Okay, here's another. Yeah, by the way, look at me now.
Well, actually,
look at me now.
Okay. Can I situation today?
Okay.
Can I just say, if I was wearing a golf shirt, some sort of situation hat, you would have been ragging on me for hours.
True.
So
True.
What's the situation?
Okay,
Why are
well,
we casual? Casual Tuesday.
No, I've lessened my game
I'm
today.
wearing a frock.
And
it's not even black.
Here's my excuse. My excuse is yesterday was a long day.
Oh.
It began with a very early morning CNN hit.
True.
And then all the prep for the radio show, because we had a complicated show yesterday, and then the radio show. And then because it was Laura Coates who asked me,
had to say yes.
Laura was guest hosting the 9:00 hour on CNN last night. And I did not one, but two segments with Laura, for whom I have the utmost respect. So I was up late last night. I can't end a television hit at 9:45 and then go right to bed.
So that's why you're wearing the hat.
So I got to bed late and I was tired.
Okay.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
And so if
you don't even understand my hat.
I don't understand your hat.
No.
Is it Harry Potter? It's got like a lightning strike.
Yes, TC, it's Harry Potter because it has a lightning strike.
Mhm.
Yes, that's what it is. Go Google the image, please. I'm not even going to explain it.
No, I figured it would be something that you would embarrass me.
Okay, how about this? I speaking of CNN, you remember it was a week ago tonight. It was election night in Pennsylvania. John Fetterman handily won. No, don't turn off your microphone. I'm not finished with you yet.
Oh no.
John Fetterman handily won the Democratic nomination. Oz and McCormick, I'll come back to that in just a moment. We still don't know who won, right?
Correct. Oh, I think
So-
it's under 1,000 votes or something.
Election night, a person who shall remain nameless said to me, well, it was just a minor stroke with regard to Fetterman. Yeah, it's just a minor stroke. To which I said, why? Because that's what the campaign told us?
Uh-oh.
Today's New York Times, this is in the Smerconish.com newsletter. I told you it's chock full of information today. And I carefully collated and aggregated all of those links.
A lot.
So please take a look at them. Gina Colada, that's kind of funny, by the way. How could her parents not have known when they named her Gina if your last name is Colada? Don't you think?
Come on.
Like
Come
the
on.
poor kid had to.
Stop.
No, seriously.
Maybe it's Regina.
Right. But don't you think that her parents in the hospital, like, what shall we name her?
Maybe they like
Regina Colada.
Maybe they like getting caught in
Like,
the rain.
it would never. Wow. Okay. And Katie Gleck at the New York Times today have the story that I haven't seen in any Pennsylvania media outlet about John Fetterman.
Uh-oh.
And it is a story that headlined, "After Stroke, Doctors Look to Fetterman's Campaign Trail Prospects." With such an important race in the balance, one that could decide the Senate majority, the state of Fetterman's health is of intense public interest. Yet, despite repeated requests, his campaign did not make him or his doctors available to discuss his stroke and medical treatment. So the Times went out and engaged professionals, physicians, and they said, like, what do you make of all of this? And read it for yourself. It's at Smerconish.com. But the takeaway is there's more here than meets the eye.
In other words,
wanna be-
were it quote unquote just a simple stroke, as someone told you on that Tuesday night,
Definitely
the
wouldn't have had
treatment wouldn't have been what
wouldn't
he
have had a
had.
defibrillator
Okay.
implanted. And
All right.
you will
So
remember.
So
You will remember we had a physician
Called
call
in
this program
and said something's not right.
Something's not right.
Yeah.
Something's not right. There's more to it.
So, okay, then the follow-up question, which I'm sure you were going to ask or we'll get to, how much does the public deserve to know? Do we need to know the whole
I think
story?
a lot. If the entire balance of the Senate may come down to this one seat, and
Yeah.
even if you're running for the United States Senate, let me
Your
just give you a
health-
little
yeah,
taste of
please.
this. The state trooper, so they're headed to a campaign event. His wife, who cooperates to an extent with the Times, says the left side of his mouth drooped for just a second. I had a gut instinct something was wrong. I yelled to the trooper, I think he's having a stroke. State trooper drives Fetterman to the Lancaster General Hospital where treatment begins. Fetterman said it involved going through his groin, which suggests he had a thrombectomy, a procedure in which the doctor slide. I don't even want to read it. Jesus. It was not until 2 days later that the campaign reported they'd been hospitalized with a stroke. Asked about the delay, Ms. Fetterman says less than 48 hours is pretty impressive timing when dealing with sensitive medical issues. Somewhere further along in the story, when she's pushed for more answers, she cut short the interview. The Times consults with a physician at Fetterman who is familiar with these sort of treatments at saying, quote, he is at risk for sudden cardiac death. For someone on the campaign trail, that might raise concerns.
Oh my.
Not me saying it, an expert
Right.
that the Times said it. I wish him Godspeed in a full recovery. My simple position is this was not fully reported on by the local media, accepted at face value that it was just a minor stroke. And now it's the New York Times committing resources to it and saying, hey, there's something maybe going on here.
We need to know more.
We need to know more. That's all. We need to know more. Okay. Today is the day in Pennsylvania. We're 1 week away from the election. We're 1 week away from the election. And today is the day that the unofficial returns are handed over by the 67 counties in the state to the State Department of State in Pennsylvania. Where are we? We don't know. There are 980 or so votes that separate Dr. Oz from Dave McCormick. McCormick had momentum and seemed to be closing the gap, and now it's come to a relative standstill. Yeah, he picked up a couple of votes yesterday, but not enough to overturn Oz. And the question now is whether there are enough ballots out there to be counted, and we don't know how many are out to be counted. I'm increasingly of the opinion that you'd rather be Oz than McCormick at this stage. Here's an interesting issue. If you return your mail-in ballot without putting a date on it in Pennsylvania, state law says that it will not be counted. A federal court decision last Friday, the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, in an unrelated 2021 case, came to the conclusion that you should count that ballot. So here's what I can tell you to a certainty. In mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania, McCormick does better than Oz. So McCormick's campaign has taken the position that the same standard articulated by the Third Circuit last Friday ought to apply to the counting of these ballots. In other words, McCormick's campaign says count everything. And Oz's campaign, now supported by the RNC, said, no. If you didn't write the date on the ballot, it shouldn't be counted. Most important, in my view, is the fact that all of the ballots that we're talking about came in on time. I think it is edge Oz at this stage and not McCormick. You remember Doug Mastriano. Mastriano is now the subject of a $6 million digital television and voter mobilization campaign attacking his pledge to completely ban abortion if Roe versus Wade is overturned as anticipated. In other words, this is an anti-Mastriano group that wants to do him harm, just like Josh Shapiro did with that commercial in the waning days of the campaign. Shapiro, the Democrat, trying to essentially hand select his opponent, and arguably it worked. So now comes a big spend against Mastriano. What they're trying to do is just build his negatives right out of the gate so that he can never recover. A story, I got to talk about Ukraine. My God, I can't allow it to fade from our high level of attention. This is interesting. Dateline, Mediak, Poland, I hope I'm saying that correctly. They were seeing at this particular border crossing location, 1,500 Ukrainians crossing Poland every hour. Now, guess what? It's the reverse. They're headed back. I hope they're safe, but people are feeling better about the progress of the war such that, and Poland has been extraordinary. And this is a story that requires more amplification, more notice, more praise of all of the countries. I mean, we've written a big check, 40 billion most recently, but Poland has borne the brunt of the refugee crisis and done it without complaint of any significance. You know that a diplomat at Russia's mission to the United Nations in Geneva resigned over the war in Ukraine, saying that he's never been so ashamed of his country. My friend Shane Inspector, I saw on Instagram, said, what a comparison. In the United States, Republicans are afraid to speak out against Donald Trump for fear that they'll be primaried. This guy was willing to speak out against Vladimir Putin in the face of potential death if Putin can get him in his sights. And then a whole host of other stories, TC, that I'm just not going to have room to cover. Kellyanne Conway's book comes out today. Remember I said of all the tell-all books, hers is the one I'm going to want to read, and now here it is.
If she talks. She talks, and especially I wanted to know what she would say
about the marriage.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Well, she says that, that Conway felt her husband, this is the USA Today review of the book. Conway felt her husband, George, continually conspired against her and the president. Quote, George would be steps away from me, tucked away in his home office, plotting against my boss and me.
Oh, geez.
So,
and they're still married, right?
Apparently it was not all shtick. Apparently it was for real. What else? If you want to avoid monkeypox, don't have sex with someone with lesions. The AP story is posted at Smerconish.com.
Thanks for that.
A leading advisor to the WHO described the unprecedented outbreak of monkeypox in developed countries as a random event that appears to have been caused by sexual activity at two recent raves in Europe. Johnny Depp and Amber Heard continues. There's a new Bill Cosby trial taking place. It's a civil case. He's physically not going to go to LA to defend himself. It'll be very interesting to see what happens. And finally, I'll just leave you all on a happy note, and that is the boss is hitting the road. Bruce Springsteen is going to go back out on the road. Details about to be released. Go to Smerconish.com and vote on today's survey question. Do endorsement defeats jeopardize Donald Trump's hold on the GOP? In other words, when tonight we know the results in Georgia and Brian Kemp has been renominated, is that really a big setback to Donald Trump? Vote at Smerconish.com. See ya.